Wendy Marvell. She's a really well-written character. Let's talk about it. So who is Wendy Marvell? Now, let's get a little basis of who this character is and why she's a well-written character. First off, she is the Sky Dragon Slayer. She's the youngest of the Dragon Slayers, and she is mostly kind of a support character within the show. She does do a little bit of fighting much later on, but for the first introduction of her character, she is mainly support or plays the supporting character, even in the video games as well. But Wendy Marvell, at the surface, seems like a very timid and shy character who doesn't want to usually fight, but deep down, there's actually a lot more to this character than meets the eye.
I'm alone. Why am I the only one who gets left behind? Is there some law of the world that says I can't have a home or family?
Now, Wendy, she suffers from a lot of abandonment issues throughout the show. This stems from her mother figure, Grandina, abandoning her, sending her into the future, where she ends up meeting her brother figure of Edelis Jalal. And then Jalal, her brother figure, basically abandoning her, and then later her guild, Cave Shelter, then kind of disappearing and you could say abandoning her in that moment. And then Fairy Tail being whisked away to Edelis, again, feeling more to this PTSD for her, feeling like she's been abandoned, and then later finding out that Fairy Tail is going to be disbanding, again, going even further into this abandonment. Not to mention the fact that before Fairy Tail gets disbanded much later in the Tartaros arc, her mother figure just dies right in front of her. So, you know, God, it's like you're kicking a little puppy at this point. And then there is, you know, Natsu and Lucy coming back to bring Fairy Tail back to life. Now, there is a lot to digest there, from the abandonment of her mother, the abandonment of her brother figure, the abandonment of her original family, to the almost abandonment of her current family, the abandonment of, you know, she doesn't want to put her friends in Lamia scale into that situation. Wendy has just abandonment issues. She has been non-stop, just kicked to the ground each time. And she's never really been given a family to really hold down on throughout the show. Fairy Tail being the longest, or potentially the longest. I think Cave Shelter probably gets a little more credit there as being the longest, but Wendy suffers again from this abandonment, and this is where we see her character really blossom as a really well-written character, going from this long-term abandonment to this strong character.
I am no angel, though I look sweet. I've still got a fire in my soul.
So how does Wendy deal with this abandonment? Well, she's been put through the ringer, as I already discussed, on the abandonment the long-term abandonment that she's gone throughout the show. Now, how does she deal with this abandonment? Well, in the first half of the show, not too well. She really likes to anchor and ground herself to, you know, the family that she needs within life. And then again, in this case here, it's Fairy Tail. And she really grounds herself and anchors herself to the first bit of comfort she sees within life. Again, it's not up to her choosing, but it is really just passing this emotionless kid trying to, you know, grow up within this world and passing her off to anchor points. And that's not really healthy for a character like, you know, a little girl within this very intense world of magic and wizards and dragons even. So how does Wendy go from becoming a victim to a hero? Now, I use victim as a very loose term because Wendy, again, she is like a little puppy that keeps getting kicked. she can never get the dub. She never can get that win, and it's really sad to see a character struggle through this, this internal abandonment, trying to find an anchor and never really get anywhere. So there are 3 moments within the show that I like to basically represent Wendy's growth from victim to hero.
Wendy versus Shelia!
First big moment is the Grand Magic Games. In this moment, she decides she wants to be stronger. She's tired of being the little puppy getting kicked around. So what she decides to do is she wants to be serious, wants to be stronger, and she's going to fight for Fairy Tail, and she's going to be just as strong as her other family members within Fairy Tail. Now, ultimately, she ties with the God Sky Slayer, Shelia, and she ties with her. But to Wendy, that feels like a loss. And she feels like, again, at that moment, she didn't do it hard enough. She's still this weakling. But out of the end of this fight, what she gets is a new friendship. Now, that's very cheesy. But this is a very important moment for Wendy as a character, because Wendy, as I said earlier, doesn't really like to fight, or would not fight entirely. Unless she's pushed into a corner, she's going to fight. Now, Wendy becoming friends with Shelia in that moment is going to be, it's been a huge development for this character, because this is going to show her the value of what she wants to fight for, being friendship. Again, most characters in Fairy Tail, that's kind of what they fight for. They fight for friendship itself. It is, it is the underlining theme of Fairy Tail. And I'm not gonna be like, it's bad, that's bad writing, but like, look at those numbers. Well, Wendy versus Ezel. This is where she ends up fighting one of those demons from the Tartarus arc, and in this moment, she awakens her Dragon Force. And the moment that she awakens her Dragon Force is when her friend Carla is about to die and get eaten. And this is a phenomenal arc, because again, a lot of our favorite characters are put through the ringer, and Wendy in this moment, what I like about it is not only does she awaken her Dragon Force, but within this moment, what I really love is, again, at the end, when she destroys this giant pillar, it's all for nothing. It is all for nothing, it feels, because there were more pillars. Again, another moment where she's just being kicked down. And very much like with the Shelia fight in the Grand Magic Games, this doesn't feel like a win for Wendy, but she still wants to go out on a smile. Wants to go out with her friend. And when she ends up getting saved, and, because, people, unless your name's Simon, you don't die in Fairy Tail. But Wendy ends up getting saved from that moment, and she, at that moment, again, she does the iconic thing that you see in a lot of film and media. She cuts her hair. Her hair already got kind of cut up during the fight, but she ends up cutting her hair. And again, usually that's a sign of rebirth, a sign of being someone new. And this is great, because the next really big fights we would see of Wendy after this would be later in the final season. And in the final season, we get a lot of fights with Wendy, and Wendy, fighting with Fairy Tail, but the fight that ultimately, we see as her, like, I would say see as her greatest moment within the first, just season of Fairy Tail, the first just Fairy Tail itself, not 100 Year Quest, is Wendy, Urza versus Irene. That fight is incredible, because what makes the fight so incredible is this is the moment Wendy becomes the thing she wants. This is where she becomes the hero she wants to become. because this entire time she's been going from this victim abandonment mentality that she's not good enough, that people just abandon her, and again, that mentally messes someone up. But this is the moment where she knows she wants, this is the moment where she becomes just as strong as the person she idolizes, Urza Scarlet. And again, why does she idolize Urza Scarlet? It's because Urza also was abandoned. Urza was also someone who fought hard and never let just being by herself put her down. And right there is a great reflection to Wendy. A small girl looking up to another, even more powerful, again, the girl, Titania, the queen of the fairies, and wanting to be as strong as her. And in this moment, how do you prove that? You prove that by helping the person you strive to beat the person that was the mother of the person that is supposed to be the person you admire, who is, you could say, even stronger. And this is so great because it not only shows the two characters working together as friends, but also, someone looking up to an even stronger character, defeating someone who basically abandoned their kid. I feel like if Fairy Tail didn't have 100-Year Quest, I think that would have wrapped up Wendy's character perfectly.
Hey, if you don't mind, can you handle the rest?
Sure.
So we've talked about how Wendy has gone from her abandonment and how she's overcame this and sought guidance in a character like Urza, and some pivotal moments that I think are very strong. A very strong case on why Wendy's character is very well written. Now I want to talk about what's the meaning behind a character like Wendy Marvell. Well, Wendy, usually typically in a lot of Japanese culture, Wendy usually would refer to wind, which makes sense. I mean, she's the sky dragon slayer. But Wendy also has the meaning of friend or friendly. And I think that's really funny, a really funny meaning behind that name, because Wendy is a very friendly type of character. Then there's Marvell, her last name, which usually means extraordinary or miracle or wonderful. And I think that also, describes her character to a great T. She is a miracle of a character. She is extraordinary. She is this little girl who is going to extraordinary heights to be something much more. She is definitely stronger than most other little girl characters within that show. And she really proves it. She shows it through her character's journey. So Wendy as a character, again, means a friendly miracle or a friendly, extraordinary person. And I think that's really interesting for a character like Wendy Marvell. I don't think that's how Hiro Mashima decided to write Wendy, but that's how Wendy basically got constructed, how she got to be made. She became a character as free as the wind, a character that doesn't need to be anchored down, but more so strive for her own personal goals and her friends. You can keep your ideologies, you can keep the things you believe in, but at the end of the day, don't feel like you have to be anchored down by something. Because again, you still got friends, you still got family in all different places, but they got their own things they need to do too. You strive your own path and be free as the wind. And that's why I think Wendy is a very well written character. Now, it could have all just been gibberish there, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video there. Again, comment things that we could do better, subscribe, keep the anime dream alive. I'm Travis. I'll be catching you guys next time.
Thank you for watching.
If you're not subscribed, be sure to do so by clicking here. If you are subscribed, we thank you for keeping the Animate Dream alive. Be sure to check out our other content here and here. For even more content, be sure to check out the rest of our channel and be sure to follow us on Twitter by clicking the link in the description below. I'm Felicia, and I'll see you next time.